Even though it's been incredibly obvious that Dr. Leskin was going to probably be the main villain, the cause of all the bad things that's happened throughout Steins Gate Zero, I do have to admit, I liked the reveal in this episode, or at the very least, how we got a little bit more details on who the Doctor is, and kind of what drove him to do these certain things he's done throughout his life. The question is why? What was his true motives for these things? Why did he, do what he did to Coggerty? Why is he trying to just destroy the world, for instance, like, create time machines and allow two big countries going at each other? I mean, why did he cause all this, or why does he not care, and he's trying to make it happen in the first place? With Dr. Leskin's motive, he kind of gives hints to Okabe and kind of what he could do to correct this timeline and eventually arrive at the Steins Gate timeline, the timeline that's at the end of the OG Steins Gate, or the dream timeline where everything is fine, Kurisu and Mayuri both get to live. So what I'm talking about is this one line from the Doctor where he talks about how the time machine is supposed to be destroyed on that day in this era. And when it is destroyed, that's what's reported. He's like, what matters if I go around and just take it and everybody thinks it was destroyed? That's what the Doctor tries to say. He's like, if I take the time machine, everybody thinks it's destroyed, I guess everything will be fine. And then Hououin Kyouma, Okabe's like, well, most likely that would create a time paradox. You're insane and all that, which I'll get into that in a second. But this line from Dr. Leskin with what he was saying to, Okabe, is pretty much hints at how the endgame of the original Steins Gate is done. Because if you remember, in the original Steins Gate, the reason how Kurisu was able to survive and Mayuri was able to survive was that Okabe literally had to trick himself, trick the world, just to be able to get into the Steins Gate timeline. When he saw that video and he realized he had to fake, Kurisu's death, and then, he had to make it look like she died, but in reality she didn't, it caused it to where that new timeline happened. And that's how, the final timeline he arrived at. So that's kind of what the Doctor was talking about, something very similar to that, and I feel like, Kurisu's father has the plans for the time machine being mentioned to Okabe in this episode, to, being able to lie to time itself and all that. Most likely, Okabe is going to be able to come to a conclusion on how to actually reach the Steins Gate world line. Now, here's another thing I do want to mention. I want to talk about how he acted towards Coggerty and what he did. When Coggerty was on the ground and all that, he's like, oh, I guess, all the brainwashing and enhancements don't matter if the person is dead. And he just straight up starts laughing once he says that, which really shows how insane the Doctor is and how little he really cares about life around him, because he literally just cares about wanting to learn things. He is a scientist. And eventually, the line from Okabe saying, you truly are a mad scientist, really is just spot on. Dr. Leskin, even though he's a mad scientist, and we knew that he was potentially going to be the endgame villain of Steins Gate Zero, I gotta admit, he's a great villain. And the reason why is because of how he's so, meshed together with all the key important events of this timeline, but also how the Steins Gate timeline even comes about in the first place. But also, Dr. Leskin, he has brainwashed many people, turned people against each other. Coggerty is a good example. And I mean, he's also, he just wants to fiddle with people's lives just because he wants to experiment as a scientist. And he's a very smart individual. I mean, he's, been very calm and thought about things for a very long time. I mean, the entire stuff with Kurisu, or AI Kurisu, and the reasoning to why she was made in the first place is pretty freaking ridiculous. So let's get into that. So basically, what Dr. Leskin actually lets us know is that the reason why AI Kurisu was created in the first place was not just to create an AI or something, or advance AI technology. It was legit all about preserving Kurisu's time-traveling theories, for he can use it to benefit himself. It's pretty messed up when you think about it. That means that he legit, like he even admits to it, he knew Kurisu was gonna die. The only reason why he made the AI Kurisu is just because when she dies, he has her theories. And there's nothing that Kurisu can do to stop him, because she's dead, and obviously an AI technically doesn't have rights in this day and era, so he can do whatever he wants. It doesn't matter. The AI has no rights whatsoever. So that's what happened. So he's like, just waiting for Kurisu to die. He knew the entire time. He could have potentially have done something, but he didn't. Now, obviously, time itself would have probably fought back against him, and most likely would have resulted in where he couldn't do anything in the first place, but it still doesn't matter. The man didn't even try to save Kurisu. He just willingly let her die. It shows what type of person the man was, how cruel he is, and just how far he'll go for science itself. And then Maho, finding out about this, about a professor that she looked up to, doing something so cruel, you gotta imagine how that is on her mental state, being with this professor for so long that seems to be like her friend, turning around, just letting your best friend die like nothing, just to be able to achieve what he wants, that has to mess with you quite a bit. But let's get into the main important details of this episode, and that is the stuff with Mayuri and Suzu and the time machine. So at the end, the time machine starts up. Mayuri and Suzu are in it, and apparently they're about to travel back in time. Now, judging by the way the scene looks, it looks like the time machine is gone. It got destroyed. You even see a part of it on the ground that they grabbed, which lets us know that, yes, the time machine did get hit, it did get damaged. And most likely, whatever just happened with the time machine going back in the past or whatever, it might put them in some form of, different type of timeline or universe or something that you're not even aware of. I have no idea. But maybe whatever just happened is what's going to cause the Steins Gate, world line. How Okabe eventually comes to that conclusion and is able to save Kurisu and Mayuri. I don't think Mayuri is dead. Even though the time machine was hit, I don't think she's going to die. Because, number one, she needs to be in the present timeline. Because we do know for a fact that the world line that they're currently in, she has to be there to eventually be for Kagura. She has to be the one to eventually bring up Kagura and then make it to where she, is like, Mama, Mama, and all that, which what we saw throughout this episode. So, Mayuri, she's not dead. There's just no way in hell that she died in this episode. So I talked about it in last week's episode review, and I was very straightforward with it. I told you all that when it came to the action, it looked very off, very weird, wasn't the best whatsoever. It looked honestly kind of bad. And now, I know when it comes to Steins Gate, action isn't the number one thing. That's not what you focus on, because it's always been about the character expressions, to the camera angles with the characters, and how they express their emotions. I've talked about this time and time again throughout my first part of Steins Gate 0 and parts of my original Steins Gate reviews. And so, I've never really been too prone on focusing on the action. And Steins Gate's never really been an action-heavy series. It's had a lot of dark moments, sadness, and all that, but it's never had, action like you would see, in a battle shonen or something. And Steins Gate 0 is a little bit of a different ballgame. It does have a little bit more action than we're used to when it comes to Steins Gate, and we're starting to get to see how there could be a little bit of flaws here, at the very least with the anime. See, in this episode, the stuff with the soldiers was pretty bad. Okay, so there's a couple of expressions with the soldiers that just look so bad. These are trained professionals that are part of big top-tier governments and stuff, and they looked like they couldn't do anything. They were scared, they didn't know how to hold their gun, they were missing their shots all over the place. It was really bad seeing these just highly trained soldiers not being able to do much whatsoever. Now, don't get me wrong, Suzu has a lot of battle experience. I'm not saying she is not a good, fighter. She's proven herself many times throughout the series. I'm not putting that down. And Kagura as well, she has also been trained for a very long time, since a very early age, brainwashed and everything, to be a soldier. So, I'm not saying that what she was doing is impossible. I'm just saying that the soldiers and how they were constantly missing shots, or how they reacted to Kagura and Suzu, was very unprofessional for men of their field, for what they have to do in their life. So I just felt like that was very weird. It definitely shows that, at the very least, when it comes to Steins Gate 0, it's not perfect when it comes to the action scenes. I'm not saying that this episode is bad, I'm just saying the action scenes were definitely lacking in quality from what I'm used to when it comes to Steins Gate, especially when it came to the soldier stuff. Kagura being able to cut people's, legit just decapitate them with just her hands, which just did not make sense. But I guess from the dialogue, from what was stated by Dr. Leskin, or Professor Leskin, he said that she's gotten enhancements. She's been brainwashed and has enhancements, so for all we know, she might be a little bit more closer to, a cyborg or something. Maybe she just got literally body enhancements, upgrades, to be able to have a little bit more regular strength than a normal human being. So maybe that's the reason why she was able to do what she did. For instance, just, you know, getting rid of people, just ending them like it was nothing. I was just like, she did that without a weapon. I mean, I understand if she was using a weapon or something, but she didn't. So I'm assuming the line from Dr. Luskin was that the enhancements mean that she's gotten these attachments to her body to where she just has more strength than an average human being. So Mayuri, she went back in the past, and like I said, I highly doubt she's dead, so she's definitely going to get something done. I really like the message at the end of the episode. Like, when she's going back in the past and Okabe receives the message on his phone and he starts reading it, the lyrics from the song actually match what Mayuri was saying to Okabe in that moment. And I gotta give props to the animators and just everyone that worked on this episode for that scene alone. That was incredible to sync up the music with the lines from Mayuri like that, just to have that double meaning going on. I appreciate stuff like that. But I do want to make sure everybody realizes that that email from Mayuri was not a D-mail by any means. Because if it was a D-mail, obviously, Okabe, he would have realized that there was a time shift. We didn't get to see that whatsoever. So, obviously, no D-mail at all. What that was, though, the reason why it took so long for it to arrive wasn't because Mayuri sent it while she was in the middle of time traveling. It was because of the phones being down. Remember, in the last episode, it was established that all the phones and everything were down, so nobody could contact each other, send messages to each other. So that's kind of the reason why, you know, Okabe couldn't get in contact with anyone. And eventually, he tried to figure out what was happening. He went to Daru and all that. We know about the story. That's what happened in the last episode. And that is the reason why the message popped up like it did after Mayuri left, was because obviously the jamming was gone, the message came in, you know, and finally he got to read it. So technically, Mayuri already sent that message a while ago. It just didn't arrive to him until the jamming stopped. So yeah, there's to clarify. It wasn't Mayuri sending that in the middle of time traveling or whatever, or a D-mail. It was just a delayed message sending because of jamming. I do like how subtle it was, but I like how it confirmed that the Professor Reyes, you know, the other woman that works with Dr. Luskin, was the person in the suit. I like how subtle that was done. Like, it wasn't directly stated. We didn't get to see her take off the helmet and see her, but it does let us know the person that was on the ground in the last episode bleeding out in the suit was Dr. Reyes, which Coggerty obviously took care of, and then we saw her in this episode. So, I do like that. I like how subtle that was. I appreciate stuff like that when it comes to storytelling. But, okay, that's pretty much about it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below if you enjoyed this episode or if you hated this episode. Be honest. If you like my content, you know, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And I love you guys. Please be safe. Stay healthy. If you want to get notified for whatever uploaded video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.